Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with Dr. Cindy George of Samoaj. Dr. George, good to see you again. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
I gotta get you to come and co-host with me.
Oh,
Yeah, I got and have some guests and
that sounds interesting.
yeah, we gotta arrange something.
Sure.
Because
I'm open.
I always like to hear you speak, and you always have so many so much good information.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You're talking about relationship challenges that we experience in these days, and it seems as though many of us are experiencing many and varied challenges. First of all, why are we experiencing these challenges, and what are the challenges that we're experiencing?
Yeah. Well, to answer your first question, why are we experiencing these challenges? I think in our relationships, and we're speaking mostly to intimate relationships, even though it can be transferred over into other relationships, parental, familial. With respect to intimate relationships, I think there's so much going on right now in society and in the world that a lot of variables, economics, social climates, all of these things are impacting our intimate relationships with our partners. Challenges with works, all of these things. And so we're having difficulty in our relationships, I think, because a lot of the environmental factors that are coming in. And so I think it's really important to speak to these things, because a lot of the times we tend to kind of push them down and not really think that they're significant. But our relationships in our home and intimate lives definitely impact how we relate to society and in our workplace and with others around us.
What are some of those challenges?
Sure. I think one of the challenges definitely is, and just for a lack of a better word, putting it in a very nutshell, staying on the same page with your partner. And really what that means is just ensuring that you both want the same things, share the same interest, share the same moving forward, if you will. And so, that's one of the things that I see is becoming a challenge for couples. Another thing definitely really is just that whole sense of intimacy. What does that really mean? And a lot of times what's happening is that persons have this physical attraction to each other. And, oh yes, let's be together, let's be a couple, or let's even get married, go to that end. But really, what are the steps that you've taken up toward that point to really ensure the longevity of that relationship? And so those are, I think, some of the challenges that we're seeing. Staying on the same page during the relationship, okay? And then also to sustaining that relationship.
So the physical attraction is based on primarily looks, primarily appearance.
Primarily appearances, and also to, whether we want to believe it or not, somebody's social status, somebody's professional status, all of these things are attractive. Economic, what we make in our jobs are also attractive to us for the partners that we have, not just the looks. And I think that's something that we tend to not want to admit. But those are things that are significant when we're choosing a partner as well.
And we don't bother to understand the person's mentality, their mind,
their personality, their makeup. And I think I wouldn't say that we don't. I don't want to say that we don't look at it, but I think we don't go in depth with it. Meaning, it's surface. This person shows me X, Y, or Z, and I take it at face value. And then when we do get into the relationship, we recognize, there's something else that's there that I didn't see, or that I saw, but I didn't want to, look into.
Well, is it a flaw in our character that prevents us from addressing those issues in someone else's character?
That's a good question. I try to stay away from a lot of negative terms. I don't know if I want to say it's a flaw in our character, but I will say I think it's probably something that is an oversight, if you will. Probably,
Is it that we don't know? It's an oversight because we don't know to look for those things? We're not mature enough to look for those things?
That's one factor too. Yes, we may not be mature enough to look for them. And also to, even if we are mature enough to look for them, we see what we want. We see what we want, and then if we do see something, again, if we don't want to recognize that, we do what? We turn a blind eye. And so I wouldn't necessarily say it's a flaw in our character, but I would say it's probably an oversight, lack of maturity, lack of really recognizing the importance of looking into that. And then if we do see it, the fact that we just don't want to deal with that, because then that might be another can of worms that we're opening that we don't really want to have to deal with at that time.
But do we want to come into the relationship with our own goals? Is that something that we should know what we want from the very beginning before we enter a relationship?
Oh, definitely.
Or is it and so the question is it that we don't look at for these things because we don't come into a relationship with any goals?
Goals for the relationship.
Goals for the relationship or goals for ourselves?
Well, I think it is because we do. That's a very good question. It is because we do come into the relationship with goals, and the goal is that you want it to be perfect. So because we want it to be perfect, the goal is, I want this relationship to work. I don't want this relationship to end in a breakup or a divorce. And so because we have that goal in our minds, it's because of that then when we see those that might not be so good, we turn a blind eye. Or again, just like you're saying, there may not be the maturity level in order to, okay, yes, I do see it, but what do I do? How do I deal with that? And that's one of the things that come in when we're going to be talking about some of the key elements of keeping that relationship going.
So how do we prevent ourselves from falling into the relationship trap where we just pay attention to the superficial aspects of the relationship and not go deeper into it? How do we prevent that?
Just be honest. You just have to be honest with yourself and recognize, okay, I have to look at these things, and realize that even if as we're saying, you turn a blind eye to it, you turn a blind eye to it, but it's still there. It's just like object permanence with when you have a kid. You may take away that rattle from the kid and put it behind your back, but the rattle is still there, whether you hide it or not. And so I think, it's just a matter of being honest with ourselves and recognizing we have to look at these things. We don't want to wait until we're 3, 4, 5 years into it and may not then be able to resolve it as peacefully as we can.
Now, you our topic, speaks to dealing with the challenges using the three elements of vulnerability, trust, and communication.
Yes.
First, I think we need to know what those things are. When we talk about these elements, I know that as people, we have a lot of ideas of what things are.
Oh, yes.
only to find out.
We might not be so right.
We might not be so right. So I think we need to establish what those things are. Yeah.
The first one, trust. When we speak to trust, we really mean, I liken it to having belief or having the faith. We all believe in some form of a deity, some form of a higher power or something like that. And so we now then have to transfer that whole notion into our relationship with our partner, and trusting that this person, and I like to say, has my best interest at heart. This person is a person that I can share my life with. This person is a person who is not going to put my business on the street tomorrow. This person is a person who I can say X, Y, or Z and know that it's in the confidence, who's going to be honest with me, who's going to be faithful, all of these things. Yeah, it's just trusting in the person and in the relationship as well, because trusting in the person then lends itself to trusting in the relationship.
But that is something that certainly develops over time.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Yeah, it's something that trust doesn't come. It's something that you earn.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And trust exactly is earned when you do recognize, okay, this person, I can tell this person something dear and close to me, and I recognize that that person held it in confidence. Okay, now I can tell them something a second time. Or this person recognizes that I don't have a close relationship with whomever, and they don't allow me to be caught up in an environment with that person. It's all about recognizing that that person knows you, understands you, and then is then able to, and willing to work with that. And you have to trust that, and also to with that other person as well. You have to give that. So remember, it's not a one-way thing. Not you wanting that person to trust you, but you have to trust that person as well.
Can it be said then that a superficiality in a relationship and trust are mutually exclusive? So you
Right.
can't have a trusting relationship
Right.
if you have not dug deeper into
Exactly.
each other's personality,
Exactly.
mindset, likes, dislikes.
And I love the word that you use, superficiality, because you're absolutely right. I mean, sometimes, and it's amazing, we have relationships where we think we know this person and everything is so wonderful, but do you really know that person? You know things about the person,
Right.
but do you really know the person? And to know of the person, and this is now where we get into the other thing of vulnerability, because then that person, that trust allows that person to then now what? Become vulnerable to you, to then show that other side of them, their weaknesses, their strengths, all of those things. Yeah.
So how do we go about establishing that trust? Just it's sort of like what, an inch in a long process.
Experience. It's I don't even want to use this word practice, but that's what it is. It's living the life and practicing it day to day. You're absolutely right. You cannot wake up tomorrow and say, okay, I'm going to trust my partner if it's not there. It has to come over time, whether it's months, weeks, even years. Sometimes it takes people to trust, and that trust comes when it has to be, as I said, it has to be both. It has to go both ways. Because if you're trusting and you're showing all these things and this other person isn't, it's only natural that you're going to pull back.
So the development of trust automatically makes you vulnerable. You need to make yourself vulnerable in order to develop trust. Is that the point?
Well, the point is that when you begin to trust, you become vulnerable. Because then you recognize there's no need for me to hide from this person. There's no need for me to not tell this person I had a bad day today. There's no need for me to tell this person I'm hurting because I didn't get that job. There's no need for me to not show my happiness with this person. So when trust is developed over time, you then become to be vulnerable. Trust is a choice. And trust goes with your cognitions, it goes with your instincts, it goes with your experiencing with this person. And then vulnerability becomes the experience, because you then now become vulnerable to this person by allowing yourself to do what? Allowing yourself to, and we say the word, bring your guards down. If I can, give some words, cliches there, but you take your guard down to become vulnerable.
But vulnerability sounds negative to me.
Yes.
Doesn't vulnerability have a negative connotation?
I think it does, because people get scared of it.
Yeah.
When they hear the word vulnerability, they think, oh, I'm not going to be vulnerable to this person. They're going to hurt me. I don't want this person to see.
I'm going to be open
to be hurt.
I'm putting myself in a position of weakness.
Guess what? That's what a relationship is about.
Really? Putting yourself in a position of weakness.
Hello? That's what a relationship is about. And when you choose to be in a relationship, it's a gamble. It's a gamble.
No.
Plain out. It's a gamble.
But you know
what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're taking a big risk.
You're taking a risk.
And so what you say then to those persons who say, I'm going to take a limited risk.
Yes.
And I think we do that. We say, well, I'm going to take some risk, but I'm going to reserve some emotion for myself just in case.
Just in the event it doesn't work out.
Just in case.
Yes.
Just in case that trust is broken. Just in case this person is not the right person for me. I'm gonna cool it a little bit.
What do I say to that?
Yeah.
That's natural. That's normal. I'm not going to say don't do that, because there may be reasons why this person is thinking these things. And we're talking about trust and vulnerability, and we also have to recognize that they're not going to just come poof out of the air. Each individual has their own past experiences, own childhood developmental issues, whatever those cases are, that affect, one, how they view those things, trust and vulnerability, and the process and the time in which they get to those things, right? So I'm saying this to say each individual is different. And so if somebody says, I want to do that, I'm not going to tell them no. Because what's happening is that that's how they work. And that's how they're going to get, hopefully, to 100%, if we want to call it that, trust and vulnerability. You know, because over time, when they give an inch, they give an inch, they give an inch, they're getting there because then now they're recognizing, I can with this person, assuming they can.
But it's important that you have total vulnerability, that you give all. It seems to me, in that sense that we're speaking of, if you don't make yourself totally vulnerable,
Correct. Yes.
so but there's nothing wrong with being cautious.
There's nothing wrong with being cautious, and probably you should. Maybe your partner has different infidelity issues in the past. Maybe, again, that particular individual has had a reason for that. And so definitely being cautious, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
So you really need to pay attention to the relationship, and you have to investigate, and you have to check, and you know, because we go into relationships really blindly in a lot of instances.
Sometimes, yes.
And perhaps not so blindly, but the things that we really want are not the things that are really important and make the relationship last.
Yeah. And that goes back to, and you know, and I use these three key elements, but there's so many other things that come into play with them, and I'm sure we're going to have to get another show to talk about everything. But, you know, you touched on something that I think is very important, and that's just understanding your partner. Because I don't want people to think it's just about trust, vulnerability, and communication. But in and around all of that, it's observing your partner, listening to your partner, knowing what they're about, and observing behaviors, observing what they're telling you, observing their relationships with other people in their life. So a lot of times when we have relationships, intimate relationships, we focus just on that. And think, okay, I'm going to understand this person just by that. But you understand that person by the relationships with other people.
Yeah, not just by the relationship with you. Because a lot of times their guards are down in other situations.
Correct.
And you need to catch that.
You need to catch that,
and see what that is. Now, communication is the part, the element that we haven't really paid much attention to so far. And how does communication play the role of communication in developing the trust and the vulnerability?
Yeah.
How do we do that? How
Definitely.
do we use that?
Yeah, and the three things that I say when I talk about communication is you want to listen. You want to talk. You want to listen, and you want to share. Okay, and especially the sharing part, because I think when you begin to share with your partner, that trust begins to build and develop. Because here you are, you're sharing a part of you. Again, not just that intimate relationship, but in other areas of your life, with maybe your familiar relationships, your professional relationships and endeavors. And so communication really plays a part with trust, because if you allow yourself to begin to dialogue, begin to share and just speak, and I don't like to use the word communicate because I'm describing communicate, but to just communicate with your partner, trust does begin to develop. Vulnerability also begins to develop, because you then become vulnerable enough to tell them things, to share certain things. And I know we were talking the other day, and I said to you, even though I list them as if, you know, they were linear, they're really a circle. And they all go around and wrap around each other.
They work together to achieve the one goal.
Exactly, they work together. They just don't say, okay, boom, trust, and I finish with you. Vulnerability, I finish with you. Communication, but they surround each other.
It's a constant use of those three elements.
Exactly.
Use of those three elements. Now, communication, I think, is the most difficult one. It seems to be the most difficult one for all of us, but particularly for men. is that a social construct? Is that a result of socialization?
I think in some cultures it can be. Yes, I think in some cultures it can be because
Why is it so difficult for us to express our
ourselves.
feelings?
Yeah, I think in some cultures because of the gender role of males is more of a caretaker. It's more of how should I say, a side out of yourself and just being that provider, that it sharing your thoughts, sharing your feelings, or even just communicating with your partner is not something that is really given a lot of value in some cultures. That gender role.
How do the opposite sex help the other to communicate?
Yeah, I think with communication, I think what it's all about. What's the word I'm looking for? Experience. Because once you begin to show that person, I want to talk to you, I want to communicate to you, there's sincerity, there's respect, there's openness. Timing also too is important.
So don't talk to me when I'm in a bad mood.
Don't talk to me in a bad mood. Don't talk to me when
I'm having challenges at work.
I'm having challenges at work, or just not focused at the time. Mm-hmm. That other person will then follow suit or recognize that, hey, this is something that we can work with, So when you say how can the opposite sex help the other, it's really just about showing, and experiencing, and they will then follow through. I truly believe that.
I got to take a break.
Yes.
And when I come back, I want to continue with communication and the fear of communicating.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that there's an inherent fear in being honest with each other.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you everything because I'm concerned about how you may react.
Yeah. Go back to vulnerability. Here we go.
Yeah. So we're gonna check that out when we come back. Just stay tuned to Spotlight. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by Tortola Concrete Limited, Bolo's High Tech Printery, and H. Lavity Stout Community College.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm really enjoying my conversation with Dr. Cindy George of Samorge. And we were talking about the 3 elements of helping to overcome challenges in relationships: trust, communications, vulnerability. And we left off talking about the fear of communicating. That somehow, and we found it in men particularly, there is this fear to express your innermost feelings and to make yourself really that vulnerable at that level.
Right. To another person.
Your heart's going to be broken. You're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to be seen as weak. All that stuff goes through our heads as men, I think. And perhaps, I thought of it that perhaps based on our socialization process and our culture. But I'm looking at assistance. How can we assist each other in a relationship that we want to be close and to work and to be successful? How can we help each other to develop that trust and that and not fear that vulnerability in order to communicate effectively? How do we do that?
And I guess what you're asking is, like we were saying, is there a process?
Yeah.
Some what can we do, what can we not do? When it comes to trusting our partner, I think it's very important for us to recognize that we don't want to how should I say, be it's not a matter of always being perfect. It's not a matter of always being correct. It's not a matter of I am going to be the one in this relationship who is on top or whatever it is. Okay? So what we need to do,
It's not a matter of being in control.
right, about being in control, exactly. And as individuals, in order to be able to develop this trust, which is the faith and the belief, again, I like to say that this person has my best interest at heart. We need to begin to show in our behaviors that it's not an I, it's a we. Okay, it's a we, not an I. And begin to show that person that I know you. Begin to learn about this person. Because before you can trust a person, you have to know them. Okay, and how do you begin to get to know a person? Right? You pay attention. You pay attention to their behaviors. You spend time with that person. You learn about their past. You learn about their present. And it's really, that's where trust builds. And so if we're looking at talking about a process and how we can help each other, going back to, help, we can get everything in. But like I said, it's just a matter of, again, just really putting a we in the relationship and not the I. Recognizing you don't always have to be in that sense of control. Okay? Recognizing that it's about sharing and learning in that relationship about the person and observing and knowing that person.
What kind of things?
So that's where you build the trust.
Yeah. What kinds of things do I do that make you decide not to communicate with me?
There are a lot of things that people can do that make you not want to communicate.
Right. So,
But a lot of times, people don't communicate because they feel that they're not going to be heard. You're not listening. And that's one of the things that I said with communicate. You talk, you listen, and you share. And if you're a person who doesn't listen, you're always going, nobody's going to want to speak with you because it's like the person is feeling I'm not being heard. Okay?
What you got to say is not valuable.
What you have to say is not valuable.
How about if I judge you? If I take what you say personally.
Exactly. And that's another thing too, not listening and letting that person feel that they're not going to be heard. And judging. And judging is something that we sometimes may do on purpose, or it may not be even in our consciousness. And I think one of the things we have to recognize is our responses to our partner when they do tell us something. How do we respond and how that affects that person? But then the onus is on our partner now to say, you know what? Again, this is the sharing and the talking. It really made me feel sad, or it made me, I felt stupid when you said that, or when you called me that name. Okay? And so we then have to share that and talk to our partner about that. So those are some of the things that cause us to not want to communicate because we feel stupid. We feel like we're ridiculed. We feel like we're judged. They're not listening.
And then you just shut down and you just shut down. And relationship suffers from there.
Relationship suffers from there because why am I going to talk to you if these things are always just the blocking?
You really need a commitment to make the relationship work.
You need a commitment to make the relationship work. And then going back to the trust and the vulnerability, okay, maybe that does happen. You're committed to the relationship. Now, you have to go to your partner and trust that when you share that, what I just said, okay, this is how I feel, X, Y, or Z, that this person is going to listen, and this person is going to recognize that, hey, this person really wants to work this out. They really want to communicate with me. Let me see what we can do to again, build that trust. Have the faith and the belief that they're not going to make me feel ridiculed like I did before. Hence, hopefully the communication will begin to develop.
Can trust be rebuilt once it's broken?
I think so.
Yeah, convince me. I mean, isn't it always going to be in the back of your mind that,
yeah,
I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something wrong.
You know what, Edwinka, that's a very good question. I do believe trust can be rebuilt. I've seen it, one. And then two, you're absolutely right. It's always going to be in the back of your head. But it goes, and I like what you said, commitment. It goes back to that, okay, yes, it's in the back of my head, but it's not in the front of my head. And what's in the front of my head is what I do and act out in the here and now.
Isn't it just going to come up at certain points in the relationship, some circumstance is going to arise, and it's going to pop right in the front of your head.
And that's only normal. We're only human. But then again, it goes back to recognizing that this is not whatever 3 years, 5 years, whenever it happened. This is in the present. And then I have to do what? Trust, be vulnerable, and communicate with this person to know that whatever that thing in the back of my head is, it's not going to happen again. But yes, I do think trust can definitely be rebuilt with commitment and with just really focusing on those things that we said you know, initially the control and not the we, not the I, but the we.
We follow an attorney in a class.
Oh my god! I know you were gonna say that.
Yeah, but we had to really plan a full
It's too
program.
much.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
it's great, and I think I think what needs to be said right now before we go is that, first of all, what's your phone number?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Please. Yes.
Yes.
Should you be having a relationship? Which camera am I in?
I think this one here.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's not. I don't want you to say it in the context of having relationship problems.
Okay.
All right. I think it needs to be said in the context of if you want to make your relationship stronger.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
not only problems.
I like the way you say
Your
that.
relationship is good,
But you
but
wanna
how
make
do
it
you make
stronger.
sure? How do you solidify your relationship? How you make it grow? How you make it better? How you make it as rich as it can be?
And at the top of the hour, we said sustainability,
Right.
not just getting there, but
Right.
sustaining those three key factors. So definitely, yes, therapy is helpful for that as well. My number is 346-0662. 346-0662.
Cool. Yeah, and people need to really come and check you, not when they having problems, but there might be some things you don't know about how to make your relationship work. It's not that you intentionally try to destroy your relationship, but you might just need to get a little understanding of communication,
Right.
or a little understanding of vulnerability, or a little understanding of trust.
Exactly.
And you can help with that, but they don't wait till when it get to the point where there's hostility.
Right, exactly. And that just goes with just keeping a relationship rich and vibrant. And sometimes I think you make a great point, if I can just take 2 seconds to say that, and I really appreciate you saying that. I think a lot of times we don't stop and recognize that we don't just have to try and have a great relationship. And that's what it's about.
Yes.
You might be having a great relationship, but there's just one thing I'm not quite sure about our intimate life. How can I become more in tune with my partner on that level? That's something we can talk about.
It might just need a simple tweaking.
Might just need a simple
just something
tweaking.
that you don't understand.
There you go.
And
There
Dr.
you go.
Cindy
I'm
George
here.
is there, right?
That's my specialization, by the way.
That's your specialty, right?
Marital couples and family therapy.
It's always good to see you.
Oh,
And
wonderful being here.
Don't hesitate to call. Don't hesitate to come back and hang out. All right. We're going to take a break forward from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to come back with Miss Gracia Wheatley. She is the Chief of Drugs and Pharmaceutical Services in the Ministry of Health and Social Development. And we're going to be talking about, keeping control of our medicines and paying attention to the expiration date and why it's important to not to have a whole bunch of medicine in your cabinet and what that means and how that can harm you, as well as paying attention to the effects of these medicines and how your reaction is and what kinds of reactions you have and how to deal with those situations. So it's some good information coming up. Keep it locked right here to Spotlight. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.